Hello and welcome to a Dota 6.73 patch discussion. This is going to be a three-part series in which WSLK and I will discuss the relevant hero changes, new items, and finally the 4 new heroes.
Okay, so just looking over the changelog right now, we are first going to go over the hero changes that we think are relevant. So we're basically just going to exclude any hero changes where the change is limited to like +2 base damage or -1 armor or something like that. Something that won't really have that big of an impact. So the first thing on the list that I can see right here is Alchemist, who had his Chemical Rage basic attack time reduced at all levels, as well as Goblin's Greed. The bonus gold limit was increased from 18 to 26, which I think is a pretty big change for him.
Yeah, I think that the attack time reduction is really huge because if you look at other heroes such as Anti-Mage and the strength he just gained from it when he got his attack time reduced, he became significantly stronger. And if you couple that with Goblin's Greed, he should be much stronger in the current game than he did before, just simply because he can really farm quite well in the jungle or abusing smaller camps for that higher gold limit.
Yeah, and to just put that into perspective, Anti-Mage, his reduced basic attack time was 1.35, and now Alchemist at level 3, his basic attack time becomes 1.15 with that Chemical Rage on. Yeah, and then the Goblin's Greed, the bonus gold, he basically gets 150% gold from creeps with that extra 26 on top of the around 50 creep bounty that you get normally. Okay, so next up here on the list, it looks like he has quite a few changes. Actually, I'd actually almost classify it as a remake for Axe. First up, he had his Culling Blade cooldown when he has Aghanim's reduced from 10 to 6 seconds. His base intelligence was improved. His base hit point regeneration was improved. Battle Hunger now gives Axe 4% movement speed per target it affects. Berserker's Call has a cooldown decrease from 14 to 10 seconds. Counter Helix does a little bit more damage at all levels. The proc cooldown was reduced for Counter Helix at all levels. And now, if Axe kills a unit with Culling Blade, he will expel a 600 AoE movement speed buff for 25% that lasts 6 seconds on nearby allies.
I definitely think this was completely needed for Axe. He was kind of underpowered in my opinion prior to this change, but I really think that the Battle Hunger movement was actually a pretty cool mechanic, and I think they're supporting the use of putting it on multiple targets with that base intellect increase by 4. And I think that the only kind of problem with this situation is to use Culling Blade properly, in my opinion, you'd actually want to use it on a creep prior to initiating, which you're probably not going to see in more public matches that are a little bit more disorganized than in-houses. So I don't know how I feel about that ability or that change. I don't think it would change very much.
But I mean, I definitely really like the route that IceFrog as well as the development team are taking right now. And the changes with Axe. He, of course, is a really classic Dota hero. He's been around for years now. And I really like his abilities, and I think he's cool. And I think it's nice that they didn't change him too much like they did with Terrorblade. They chose kind of like a complete remake for him with his skills. So I really like their decision to maintain Axe's abilities. But this is definitely a very necessary buff, and we're just going to have to see if he's picked more frequently now. Looking down on this list, we now see, it looks like Bloodseeker. His Blood Sense now reveals invisible units below 20% health, and it partially reveals invisible units below 40% health. The Rupture duration was improved at level 1 and 2, and Rupture cooldown is now reduced with level.
I feel the change to his ultimate is absolutely necessary, but I really think that, and some of you are going to crucify me for saying this, that the Han change where he made Bloodseeker reveal all invisible units at 40% rather than 20 is something that that hero needs. I don't think it's that strong, comparatively speaking, but I think I'd rather see that change rather than at 20%.
I don't know. I think he's playing it safe with this buff, especially because Bloodseeker has been buffed in the last several versions as well. We saw the last version he received a buff to the health regeneration where he actually heals for half of the hero's lost health if he dies within 200 AoE instead of getting the killing blow. So Bloodseeker wasn't so much of a kill steal hero anymore. I think while it is plausible that he will eventually get buffed to the point that he'll completely reveal units below 40% health, I think it's good that they decided to kind of ease into a change like that, and I think it'll help him out, especially because it's really annoying a lot having to reveal in Dota 2 on Bloodseeker with those low health heroes. The next big change here looks like it's Dragon Knight, who I would say this is an amazing change. While in Dragon form, Dragon's Tail's cast range is now improved from 150, which is essentially melee range, to 400 now, which is 2/3 of a ranged hero's attack, essentially.
Yeah, I think this is a really significant change, unlike most of the prior changes we just discussed. I think this is really going to change Dragon Knight's ability in a lot of scenarios, because that stun is really strong, especially if he's able to put it on a higher priority target that he wouldn't normally be able to get into melee range of. It can really significantly change the course of the game and how he's picked in certain games.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a good change, but I still don't think he's going to be an amazing hero. Um, he's just he just doesn't do enough damage. He's more of like a survivability hero who can just kind of throw out that slow debuff on the entire enemy team with that slow splash damage that he gets from his level 3 dragon form. Well, I think the change is great, and it's going to definitely make him a lot stronger in lane around level 6. Going to definitely be able to pick up a lot more kills that he wouldn't necessarily have been able to before. I really don't think it's going to change him that much. But we're just going to have to wait to see. That's just my personal opinion. Moving on here, it looks like Skeleton King had his reincarnation slow duration buffed, increased from 3 to 4 seconds, as well as the reincarnation cooldown has been majorly rescaled. It used to be 300 seconds, 220, 140, and now it is 260, 160, and 60 seconds. Only 1 minute cooldown at level 3.
I think this change is quite good, especially in a more public setting, because I notice a lot of Lyric players decide that they will play a little bit more passively when they don't have their ultimate up, and the fact that at level 3 it's 60 seconds, it really just lines up with other heroes' ultimates at that point in the game. So it keeps players, playing aggressively on a hero that shouldn't naturally be playing aggressively.
Yeah, I completely agree with the things you just said there. And also, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in competitive play where team fights are taking much less time than 60 seconds or anything like that. So it wouldn't really have made much of a difference. But definitely in the more public and just kind of for fun setting, it's going to have a big change and make players more aggressive with Skeleton King. The next hero here looks like Abaddon, or Lord of Avernus. His Aphotic Shield now explodes at the end of its duration, even if it's not broken by opponents, as well as the cooldown has been reduced by a few seconds at every level, and the cast range has been increased a little bit as well.
I love this change. It just makes LOA so much more lane present when he's able to just force use of the Aphotic Shield, as opposed to people just simply ignoring it, and you're kind of forced to put Aphotic Shield on a low HP creep because you know they're going to be able to force pop it at that point. But this change is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially because heals were kind of underpowered when compared to other casters or healers previously, like Omni Knight and Dazzle. I really like the damage buff there with the not having to take damage for it to explode. It's going to allow a lot more aggressive play, especially because now he can just kind of chase down enemy heroes and they have to make a decision whether they're going to hit him or they're going to run away, because both ways they're going to take the shield damage. It's just, do they think they're going to take less hit damage from running away or for standing and fighting him? It's going to make heroes be forced to fight each other more frequently, I think. The next hero here looks like Medusa. The cooldown on the mana shield was removed, which was always something that really annoyed me about her. The mana shield had like a 5-second cooldown. It really just didn't seem to make any sense to me. So that was cool that they removed that. And then also they rebalanced her ultimate, Stone Gaze, which previously was a skill that on cast, any hero that was facing in the direction of Medusa's hero would be purged, and they would regain their movement speed over a few seconds. Now what happens is you click the ability, and it puts a buff on yourself which if an opponent looks at you when you have this buff on you, they are then purged. The buff lasts 5 seconds, and I just think it's an amazing skill because it'll allow Medusa to effectively purge the entire enemy team, pretty much any team fight. It's pretty hard not to look in Medusa's direction for 5 full seconds. Additionally, it does an enormous amount of damage to summoned units now. 500, 1000, all the way up to 1500 at level 3.
I completely agree with you. I really think that this is going to counter a lot of illusion-based heroes or ultimates like Darkseer, who really relies on the fact that he's going to be able to propagate a lot of illusions and kind of confuse the enemy team. So I really think that the change from 0.6 seconds to 5 really enables her to just flat out counter illusion-based heroes. So definitely a good change.
Yeah, especially because illusions that are created over that 5-second period are going to be destroyed as well. So it can pretty much like nullify the images from either like Darkseer or Phantom Lancer, other Manta carriers as well, pretty much instantly, which is amazing for her. As well as destroying Infernal pretty much instantly now. The next hero here looks like Morphling got a little bit of a change here. His base agility was increased by 5, and the adaptive strike cooldown finally got a decrease from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. Never really understood why that cooldown was so high. The skill really didn't do that much damage throughout the game. I mean, albeit it does do a little bit more damage. You can get in the 400, maybe even the 500. It's really rare if you're getting into like the 600 realm, like super late game, like 50 minutes in the game. But I really didn't think that warranted a 20-second cooldown. I think 10 seconds is much more reasonable, especially because Morphling really has mana problems early on in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Adaptive Strike really needed to have a decrease. I feel like in Dota 2, he's not really as strong as he was in Dota 1, and I think also the base agility increased by 5 not only increases his survivability, but it helps him out in the last hitting department, because Morphling is kind of really difficult to last hit with because he has an abysmal base attack rate.
Yeah, he's got one of the lowest basic attack damages. I think it's the low 40s. I think he starts out with 41 damage if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I'm misleading you guys there. I think it's 41. I'll have to check up on that and I'll add a sticky. So the next hero on the list, Silencer, he had a bit of a damage buff to Glaives of Wisdom at all levels, now doing 75% extra damage based on his intelligence at level 4. Additionally, Last Word now functions while Silencer is stunned or silenced, and Last Word also is no longer triggered when enemies use items.
I don't really know how I feel about this change, because on one side you look at it as a buff, but when you look at the fact that they also can't use, or they can now use items and not get silenced, it's kind of a nerf at the same time. So I'm not quite sure quite yet how I feel about this change.
It's definitely going to do its job a lot better of stopping those heroes who really rely on throwing out a burst of spells like instantly, like, you know, Earthshaker, Puck, even something like Pugna or something like that. Just heroes that are just using spells over and over, Zeus. But the thing is, usually in higher level games, there's not so many of those heroes. Of course, we do see Earthshaker all the time, but you see a lot of like Windrunner and Priestess of the Moon and other picks who are picking up really strong items like Force Staff and Ginsu and like Cyclone Stick and Mechanism. And I really think that Last Word now not triggering the silence off of the use of items is kind of a bit of a nerf as well. So kind of just mirroring what you said, I'm really not sure which way this is going to go with Silencer. Next here is Sven, who just had a greater cleave increase of damage. His ultimate is no longer purgeable, as well as it deals a little bit extra damage at levels 2 and 3. Also, Warcry duration has been increased from 6 to 8 seconds, and the cast time has been removed on the board.
I feel that the changes to Sven were absolutely perfect and spot on, simply because God's Strength was the biggest source of Sven's damage later on in the game, and for any hero to simply counter it with Purge made it significantly weaker. And Warcry was absolutely necessary to have changed, simply because it defeated its own ability, because if you sat there for half a second to cast it, you really didn't get much of the benefit from the movement speed, I feel.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with the rise of competitive heroes such as Shadow Demon we've seen in the last version, whose ultimate, of course, is Purge, as well as Medusa maybe staging a bit of a return here with her buffs. Sven's ultimate would be pretty much nullified simply by a quick counter pick. So that would have ultimately been the bane of Sven had this change not been made. So I think this is a great change, like you said earlier. And then the Warcry class time being removed, I really don't know how much that's going to affect him. Because a few versions ago, you might remember they took away Ursa's cast time on Overpower, and everyone thought it was just like a minor change, and everyone didn't really pay attention to it for a few days. And then all of a sudden, everyone started playing Ursa Warrior, and they realized, like, holy crap, this is overpowered. And then, like, he was so frequently picked, and his win rate was so high that Ice Rug had to, like, release an emergency patch, and it got, like, changed back in, like, a couple months' time. So, I think it's great that Sven got these buffs, but we're going to have to see how much it really affects him. And then last on our list, it looks like we have Anti-Mage here, whose attack time was reduced back to its original basic attack time of 1.45, as well as his armor being reduced by 1. So it's about time that happened.
I completely agree with you. It's about freaking time.
Yep, no more Anti-Mage pub stomping.
And with that being said, that wraps up this discussion on the hero changes in the recent 6.73 patch. Don't forget to let us know down below in the comments section what you guys thought about this review, and if this is something you guys would like to see more of as patches come out in the future. The final 2 parts of this series will be released sometime this week, and don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. This has been Zegas and WSLK signing out. Have a good day, guys.